Hello, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started in just a moment. I'm going to give you guys a chance to filter in. Let's see who's here. Wow, you guys are filtering in fast. That's awesome. Yay, hey. All right, let's see who's here. Jolinda and Joan and Lisette and Karen and Cassidy. Cassidy. All right. Good job. Somebody named Dr. Ritamarie just joined the room. That's not right. That's another me. There's two of me. Everybody, yay. Awesome. All right. I'm so excited to see all of you. Familiar faces, so to speak, familiar names, and not familiar. So I'm happy to have you here. And go ahead and type in the chat. Let us know if you're, why you're here, like really what prompted you to be here. And I'm going to start the presentation in just about a few seconds. Yay. All right. Okay. It was about 5:30 in the afternoon on my 35th birthday. And I was excited. I'd come home from my clinic early. I just had 3 months before graduation. I was in an internship. I got somebody to cover my shift that night so I could have some time to celebrate my birthday. And I was eagerly awaiting a call, the promised call from my mom to wish me a happy birthday before heading out to dinner with my husband. When I heard him come in, I was excited that he was home early. And when he walked into the room, I realized that call from my mom was not going to happen. He came in telling me that he had just gotten a call from one of my siblings that my mom had suffered a massive heart attack that afternoon, and she died. She didn't survive. My emotions, as you can imagine, were pretty intense at that moment. And they ranged from sadness and grief, shock, and then anger and even outrage that this could happen to someone at my mom's age. My mom was 56. She was seemingly healthy. She had no diagnosed conditions at that time. She wasn't on medications. Yeah, she'd had the typical things that people in their 50s back were expected to have, like joint pains, and she had some gallbladder issues, but she had 9 kids, so that was to be expected. She had some skin cancers to remove from her face, but she spent a lot of time in the sun, so that was to be expected. And she was tired, and every afternoon she had to go lay down after gardening in the morning. But she was healthy. She'd been given a clean bill of health. Yet she died suddenly of a heart attack out of the blue at 56 years old on my 35th birthday. And of course, every year to celebrate my birthday it's bittersweet. But the outrage for that just grew. It grew because I was angry at a medical system who could let these sorts of things happen, who weren't aware that there are early signs that she was heading in that direction. And as I look back with the knowledge and experience I have now after 27 years of practice and seeing patients and working with groups, that I knew there were early warning signs that any of you could have caught when you know the information that I'm going to be sharing some of it tonight and that I teach in my seminars and in my courses. And I became committed then and more committed over time to change the way healthcare is practiced, to help to institute in this world, in this country, a world of true healthcare A world where every doctor understands the impact of diet and lifestyle choices, of attitudes, of exposures on the overall health. And where restaurants and stores and everywhere around is abounding with easy, healthful choices. That's the world that I want to live in. That's the world that I want to leave a legacy for my kids and my grandkids and their grandkids. And we are the ones who can make that legacy come true. So today's presentation is about metabolic disorders and a couple of the ways that you can approach metabolic disorders. But it's about more than that. It's about a new healthcare system that we all have to be a part of putting into place. So I'm going to share my slide presentation with you. And let me find this. I want you to pay close attention to my words. Pay close attention to my implications. Pay close attention to the activities and the actions that you can take for yourself, for your family members, and for the members of your community who you serve. Whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a health coach, a nutritionist, a chiropractor, a naturopath, a physician's assistant, did I name them physical therapist, whatever you are in the healthcare realm, or whether you're just a concerned person who wants the best health for yourself and for your family members. This presentation is for you, and it's going to be chock full of action steps that you can take in your own life, in the lives of your family members, and for your patients and your clients. So the name of this is The Benefits and Risks of Fasting, Intermittent Fasting, and Time-Restricted Eating in the Management of Chronic Metabolic Disorders. And you may not understand what I mean by metabolic disorders, and I'll start with that. Because metabolic disorder is what killed my parents. My mom, my dad, 2 years later at the ripe old age of 64. He made it a few more years than she did. My sister, 10 years later at the age of 44. They all suffered at the hands of the outcomes, the negative impacts of metabolic disorders. So let's start with explaining what those are. I founded the Institute of Nutritional Endocrinology, with many of you have taken classes with me in there. And the goal of that is to change the state of healthcare, to educate doctors, nurses, health practitioners of all sorts to do the kind of interventions that we do, that we know save lives. So what are metabolic disorders? Well, it really comes down to just too much or too little of a substance that's needed to stay healthy. A missing enzyme or vitamin, and enzymes we know are involved in metabolic processes. Enzymes and vitamins are cofactors to those enzymes, and they help to catalyze those reactions, whether they be immune system reactions, neurotransmitter creation, hormone creation. Very important stuff. It's an abnormal chemical reaction that hinders metabolic processes. So when there's something wrong, maybe an inborn error of metabolism, a genetic thing, maybe something that's altered as a result of toxic exposures. It can be a disease in the areas that control metabolic processes like the liver, the pancreas, the endocrine glands, and others. It could be nutritional deficiencies, which we know are rampant in our society. People have nutritional deficiencies because the food supply has been tampered with, altered. The chemicals that are used to grow the food create foods that don't have the full plethora of nutrients that they need, and then the processing destroys it. And then genetic imbalances. And people try to blame their genetics. Well, my mom had diabetes, so of course I will. Or my mom had arthritis, so of course I will. So I could do the same, and I could say, well, my mom had arthritis, so I will get it. My mom had arthritis long before she died, and I'm 8 years older than she was when she died. So I'm not, there. My mom had gallbladder disease, so I should have it. No, I don't have gallbladder disease, and I don't ever intend to have it. Right? My mom had skin cancer. No, I don't intend to get that. And it's not by slathering on sunscreen. It's by building up my immune system on the inside. So these are all the things that you have the ability to change the paradigm, to change the thinking, and to help people to alter their metabolic processes so they don't get metabolic disorders. Because metabolic disorders can result in all the killer diseases. Diabetes, cancer, heart disease, brain imbalances, Alzheimer's, cancers, right? And more. These are all epidemic in our society. And my mom and dad died of heart disease. My grandmother had diabetes and then died of heart disease. My sister had cancer. My brother-in-law had cancer. We've been touched. All of our families have been touched by these diseases. And we have in our power the ability to help people to alter these metabolic processes, to alter these and prevent and reverse these metabolic disorders so they can prevent going down this pathway. But it has to start with education. And the early symptoms, it means managing and addressing and seeing these early symptoms that are early symptoms of something more serious to come. The belly fat, the low energy, especially people that get hungry right after they eat, or tired right after they eat, or even feel hungry even after a full meal. And that mid-afternoon energy slump, that's become like, oh yeah, everybody has that, right? Oh yeah, I hear it all the time. It's not normal. Difficulty focusing, cranky and irritable if miss a meal. These are simple signs that I see all the time, and you probably do too, in yourself, your family members, and your clients and patients. And they're considered just nuisance type things, and nobody takes them seriously. But they are the tip of the iceberg for those conditions we just talked about, for cancer, for heart disease, for metabolic disorders in the organs and glands. And the metabolic disorders timeline, it's really about starting with things. And this is an example of starts early on with too much insulin being produced. Why? Because of the diet, because of the lifestyle, because of the stress. Too much insulin is being produced, but it's asymptomatic while it's wreaking havoc in the body and making changes. And this could be 30 years before one of these serious diseases happens. And I'm sure this was happening in my parents based on looking at their diets and their lifestyle. Reactive hypoglycemia might be the first sign, but you may not even get that. A lot of people say, yeah, since I was 6, if I went more than 2 hours without a meal, my blood sugar would dip. And I had a kid like this. If he went too long, he started to get cranky and irritable. At first we were like, what's wrong with him? And then we realized what it was. And we would literally go to his room and shove food in his mouth. And actually within seconds, minutes, he would calm down. He'd go, oh, I'm sorry, Mom. My blood sugar must have been low. And he got to learn it. Then pre-insulin resistance, which is the stage that's missed, except by you guys who've been into my insulin resistance training program or my nutritional endocrinology training. You guys know how to detect that pre-insulin resistance because it's not detectable by medical diagnostic standards, but it is detectable by the stuff that I teach. And had my parents and doctors been looking for these signs, my parents would probably still be with us today. Then there's the diagnosable, right? From insulin resistance on over is insulin resistance, blood sugars over 100, fasting on 3 or more occasions, metabolic syndrome, that plus elevated lipids or high blood pressure or both. And then these lead to cardiovascular disease. And sometimes they don't even have the full-blown insulin resistance. And sometimes they don't have the elevated cholesterol and blood pressure, but they have those processes happening and they're in the pre-insulin resistant state, yet their heart has had enough damage, their vessels have had enough damage that, like my parents, they die of a heart attack. And we don't want that for the people in our care, the people we love. And cancer, same thing, cancer. My sister, she was morbidly obese. Nobody told her she needed to lose weight. Nobody told her that her obesity had anything to do with the digestive disorders that she was popping the Tums all the time for. Nobody told her that that was related to her low energy and she was drinking black tea all day like I was back in my 20s. Nobody told her because the doctors just didn't know. They hadn't been educated in medical school because medical school education is very highly pharmaceutical in terms of intervention. And that's what we need to change. And then, of course, diabetes and Alzheimer's, which is connected. Alzheimer's is like diabetes of the brain. All of these serious diseases come and they start early on. And you, as a health practitioner, you as a concerned family member need to be able to detect those imbalances and make changes in that person to help them correct it, empower them to correct it, empower them to learn how to check their own blood glucose, empower them to have the kinds of blood tests and even test calcium scans and advanced lipid panels that can detect these sort of imbalances before and scare them maybe into submission of making these dietary changes. And the same thing with the cancers, early detection type of things, prevention, not early detection, because that's what mammograms do, right? We detect it early. What if we looked at the diet and the lifestyle and some of those subtle symptoms Some of those subtle things when you know how to read a regular blood chemistry in a functional way. That's what we need to be doing for people. And those early signs that the brain is being destroyed, that the memory is being destroyed. You know, those lapses that happen that people call the senior moments when they're in their 40s. It's a sign, guys. Brain fog, mental fatigue. It's a sign that something more serious is going on. And we, as functional health practitioners, we can go out and we can help people to detect this stuff and prevent it. Now, not everybody cares. Not everybody believes it. Many are bought into the medical system of, I'll wait till it's broken, then I'll fix it. But we don't want to wait till it's broken, then we fix it, because the fixes aren't really fixes. They're symptom cover-ups. So we want to look at the causes. We want to look at these people and be able to understand, are there genetic factors that are playing in here? But really the genetics is a small part, but the genetics tells us how careful people have to be about these other aspects, the nutrition, the stress, the exercise, the sleep. The genetics tell us how much we can get away with, or we just decide that we don't know our genetics and we're just going to not try to get away with anything. We're trying to teach people to be pristine, which is really the good thing. So as health and wellness practitioners, we need to learn how to optimize metabolic pathways and help people to progress on their healing journey. That's what our goal is. That's what our job is. What is their journey, right? To go from here to there. What's their here? What's their there? We need to help them to get into balance. And that's what I've been doing for the last 27 years of practice. And this is what I teach to other health practitioners, because quite frankly, this isn't the stuff I learned in school. This is the stuff I learned by advanced study, by studying with functional medicine pioneers like Jeffrey Bland and Jonathan Wright and Alan Gaby and others early on in my career, and then doing the research myself and figuring it out, because I was sick and I was able to overcome it. What medicine does is put people in a box. Okay, let me ask you some questions. Let's put you in a box, slap a diagnosis on it, and then what drug or surgery needs to be given. But when you do that and you take a drug or do something that's symptom relief, it's like pulling out that smoke detector battery in the middle of the night and allowing that fire to rage out of control. And the house burns down. Now, it may be a false alarm, but if we just pull the battery out, we don't know. And in the medical perspective, this is where we end up. In the hospital, I watched my brother-in-law just wither away from being a strong, big man to wither away to nothing in a hospital setting like this, because no one was giving him the right answers to his approach. I even went and talked to the doctors about, some emergency intervention, like giving him some vitamin C and omega-3s in his IVs, and they weren't listening because they were scared he would get a kidney stone. I said, we're more scared he's going to die. Do it. We'll risk the kidney stone. But they wouldn't. So health is not black or white. Health is not you're sick or you're not. And that's kind of how our Western system looks at it. But from a functional perspective, we look at health as a continuum. We look at disease as the bottom, and then once the disease, but before the disease, preceding the disease, are imbalances that we can detect. And then when somebody's in the state of balance but not optimal health, there's a few subtle signs we can still detect. And there's some functional lab tests we can see. They look in balance, but maybe there's some subtle imbalances. And before that, kids born, most babies are born in this vibrant, healthy, and many of them are born in this unstoppable health condition. You ever watch a kid? They seem unstoppable. And unstoppable means that we are able to do all the things we want with our life without restriction, if we're taking care of ourselves. So being unstoppable means we must take care, and we must teach people how to take care of themselves to be in that state, so that one night of bad sleep isn't going to affect you. It's going to just say, okay, I got to get back to good sleep, because we have to know how to stop and rest in order to be unstoppable. So our job is to help people wherever they are on this continuum and move them in the direction of vibrant and unstoppable, so they can live their lives to their fullest. So to get the most, I'm going to share a lot of stuff with you tonight. To get the most out of it, what I want you to do is to pay attention. Turn off your phones. Turn off Facebook. If you do want to go to Facebook and invite anybody to come, if you've heard some good stuff so far and you think there's people that you know that would be good candidates, just send them to drritamarie.com/fasting deep dive. I want you to stay focused. I want you to open your minds and your heart and take good notes, because there's going to be a lot of sharing, and make a decision as to what your next actions are going to be, either for yourself or in coaching and empowering someone else who's important to you in your life, a client, a patient, or a loved one. So be here. And again, this is just one of the approaches to metabolic disorders. So why the ancient art of fasting in the modern world, huh? Okay, fasting has been around for centuries, age old. Why is it suddenly being brought in this day and age? What are the ins and outs of the different kinds of fasting? There's a lot of fasting. It used to be we talk about water fasting, but there's short water fast, long water fast, intermittent fasts, food while fasting. Yes, we'll talk about all of these today. How to eat while achieving the benefits of fasting. Who gets the most out of fasting, and who should really proceed with caution? And what's autophagy? Why is it magical? What's happening in the body? How do we measure it? And how do we achieve it? And the role of diet variation in hormone flexibility and balance, not just doing the same thing every day after day, week after week, month after month, but how do we vary that to keep the body guessing and keep the metabolic flexibility going? We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the benefits and risks of fasting for women, because what we found, it's a little bit different because of women and men's hormonal differences. There may be some differences. And the metabolism, the metabolic improvements, the actual metabolic improvements we see in fasting, and why it is so good for helping us with this metabolic imbalances that are the root cause of all of our major diseases. So I want you to know that everything I share here is not intended to replace the care of a one-on-one practitioner relationship. It's not medical advice. I'm giving you ideas for evaluation, discovery of what's out of balance, and then empowering you to put things into balance, whether you're doing it for yourself or for clients or for family members. And the thing is that if you are working with clients or patients, and you're not like a MD or ND or somebody that's in a one-on-one relationship sitting across from that person, and you are in a diagnosed treatment type relationship, be careful the language you use so that you don't get caught up, because the pharmaceutical industry is really out to shut down the natural health industry. We know that, we see that. And I don't mean to be the, gloom and doom or conspiracy theory or any of that, but that's what they're trying to do. And you got to be careful how you language what you do. Use language that is not medical language when you're doing this. And even if you are a practicing MD, make sure you're in the scope of your license and the way that you word things, right? So that nobody comes after you. We got to make this change in the world. Okay. So, and tell your patients, use this kind of a disclaimer with them. Here's the thing. I wish I had the little device that I can just stick into the side of my head, and everything that's in my head could come out and flood onto the device, and then you could stick it into your little slot and transfer it. But the truth is that transfer of knowledge and information comes from, it takes time. It takes time to learn it. It takes time to actually do it. It takes time to experiment and see the cases where it works, the cases where it doesn't. And it takes time. And I can't give you everything I know or everything you need in one 90-minute presentation. But I'm going to do my best to give you some really great tidbits and share with you how you could come even and go even deeper. I wish I had that thing, because I could just create a whole bunch of them, sell them for a lot of money, and retire to the beach. But it's not going to happen in our lifetimes. So let's get to work. So what about fasting in the modern world? I first did my fast. Did my very first fast in 1984, I believe. And it was a 5-day fast. And it was basically a 5-day fast that was based on a book called The 5-Day Allergy Relief System. And they said, do a 5-day fast and then you can test foods back. I felt amazing when I fasted. Except I felt awful when I started eating again. And I didn't know enough back then to know the proper way to break a fast and how to do it properly. And so I was like, wow, fasting's great. And then when somebody introduced me to fasting as a therapeutic, And so I said, yeah, I love fasting. It was great, but it really didn't work long term. And he told me I didn't fast long enough. And I said, what? I fasted for 5 days. That's crazy. How could I go longer? He said, read this book, Fasting Can Save Your Life, and check it out. And he gave me a center that was nearby that actually took people in to do fasting. Long story short, I ended up reading the book, realizing all my health challenges at the time, which were, fatigue that I didn't know about because I drank calm tea all day long, and brain fog, which I did know about, and sinus problems and gut problems and headaches. All of that stuff was really toxicity and metabolic imbalance, right? It was really metabolic imbalance. And I was looking for the answers in all the wrong places. And the doctors kept giving me various and sundry drugs. So why is it popular now? When I first did my fast, I didn't tell very many people because they just said I was crazy and anorexic. And even over time, as I became a health practitioner, I talked about fasting, but I was subtle with it because I didn't want people to get scared away. And now fasting is like the biggest buzzword. Go on Google and it's a big word. So let's talk about why fasting is important and why it has benefit, and why I completely turned my life around with that fast. That 28-day, I did a 28-day fast, and completely turned my life around. So fasting benefits, these have been actually proven, shown by studies. It improves metabolic activity. It doesn't decrease metabolic activity. Yes, if you fast for 28 days, yes, your metabolism will slow down and you have to go easy on the food. But short-term and intermittent fasts actually boost metabolic activity, generate antioxidants, which support our tissue, reverse the effects of aging, increases specific chemicals, butyrate, which is important for microbiome, carnitine, which is important for fat metabolism, and branched chain amino acids, which are important for energy metabolism, increases your Krebs cycle activity. And Krebs cycle, what is that? That's the energy metabolism. That's how we create ATP. That's how our body creates energy from the glucose and the oxygen that we take in. So it increases the activity of that, which will increase energy. Maybe not while you're in the middle of fasting because you're going to have lower energy because you're conserving. Enhances gene expression and protein synthesis. It affects purine and pyrimidine metabolism, which are part of DNA repair and synthesis. Activates chemicals called sirtuins, SIRT1 and SIRT3, that improve insulin response, antioxidant defense, and glycolysis. Lowers insulin and glucose and increases insulin sensitivity. And those are all good because elevated glucose, insulin resistance is one of the key causes of all these metabolic disturbances. It decreases inflammation and stimulates autophagy, and we'll go into detail on what autophagy actually is. It improves blood pressure, triglycerides, and cholesterol. Way safer than taking statins and blood pressure medication. And improves brain function, right? Better than taking all those. There's no drug that's been found to help to reverse or control Alzheimer's, but food and elevating metabolic activities and fasting has been shown to do that. And of course, aiding in cancer prevention, and also I'll show you a study later, actually in aiding in cancer reversal. So this is phenomenal. And you might be saying, well, I can't fast and I can't go without food. So we're going to talk today about fasting and the different ways that you can do it and the different ways that you can experiment with it with yourself and have your clients experiment with that don't involve a 28-day fast like I did, because that needs to be done under supervision. But how do you get the benefits of fasting and bring it into day-to-day life? So that comes down to the types of fasting. There's intermittent, which is, fast and eat and fast and eat. There's short fasts. There's extended fasts. Short would be kind of like my 5-day fast. That's a short fast. Extended fast would be, 10 days or longer, like I'm on my 28-day fast. Then there's people who are doing dry fasting, and that's something I haven't experimented with, and I'll share with you a little bit more. And then something called the fasting mimicking diet, which allows you to eat while fasting. So let's look at the healing power just in some studies and things that have been observed. After just 16 hours of fasting, your body will begin to attack the bad cells called autophagy. And face it, we all have metabolic processes happening every day. And the cells and the internal parts of the cells, the cytosomes and all the different components of the cells actually, get damaged by metabolic processes, and they need to be gotten rid of. But when they don't be gotten rid of, it interferes with cellular function. The body will always eat the bad cells and tissues for energy before breaking down muscle and other tissue, other good cells. And that's the thing that people need to be aware of. Because they say, oh, I don't want to fast because I'll break down good muscle tissue. But the truth is that your body will go around and scavenge up the bad stuff first. And it actually can convert those bad cells into energy fuel for the body. The bad cells, they can't adapt to using fat for energy. So as soon as we stop eating, they can't keep growing, like cancer cells, for example. But they become the food for the other cells. But good cells they can switch. It takes anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks for the cells to actually shift over to be able to go into fat burning as the primary fuel versus glucose burning, which when people do keto diets and all that, that's why there's that adaptation period. As a result of the fasting, the body can clear cellular debris and abnormal cells like cancerous cells. So this is important to note that fasting has healing. And even if you just can get to that 12-hour fast between dinner and breakfast, which everybody should be doing, there's a lot of cleanup that happens there. But when we eat too close to bedtime or people wake up in the middle of the night and have a snack, it's interfering with healing power of that fasting window. And then as people can get longer and longer and longer, even just periodically getting to 16 hours or doing what we'll talk about in a little bit of alternate day fasting can be phenomenal, or a fasting mimicking approach, which can also get these benefits. So intermittent fasting, eat fast. We pick a window, we eat and fast. The window may be 3 days, it may be 24 hours, it may be 16 hours, but intermittent fasting. And there's kinds of intermittent fasting. There's alternate day intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting meaning that you go 24 hours without eating. The next day you eat, and then you go 24 hours without eating again. And when I say 24 hours fast, that means that no days are without food. You go from dinner one day to dinner the next day. So you've eaten on both days, but you've got that 24-hour period to allow your body to heal. It could be that it's lunch to lunch, or it could be breakfast to breakfast. And everybody's a little different in which type of intermittent fasting works best. There's time restricted eating. Like you eat every day, maybe you eat 3 meals, or maybe you drop it to 2 meals, but you're basically going to be eating within a window. So for me, I generally speaking do at least a 16-hour fast, if not longer. I eat within an 8-hour window, sometimes shorter. And mine is usually anywhere from, let's say 12 to 2, sometimes 4 before I eat my first meal. And then I, eat, and then I eat and go to bed and then don't eat again till the next day. That's time restricted eating. And then diet variation with feast days. So for example, say you have a fast day where you go 24 hours and maybe you go 36 hours, which means you have a whole day where there's no food intake. You eat dinner on, say, let's Tuesday. On Wednesday, you don't eat at all, and you don't eat again until Thursday in the morning dinner. That's more of a 36-hour fast. But basically, the variation would be you have a fast day and a feast day every week. And then the other days you're doing, maybe it's a modified keto plan, a healthy keto plan. Maybe it's just whatever works for you on those days. That's, normal caloric intake and expenditure are equal, but you do a fast day and a feast day each week. But diet variation can also be that you have 2 fast days. So you alternate. A Monday you do, the last meal is dinner, and then you skip on Tuesday and you eat dinner the next day. Wednesday you do normal, and then Thursday you don't eat again until dinner. Do that 2 days a week. Have one feast day. And what I mean by feast day doesn't mean going to McDonald's and Burger King and Dairy Queen for dessert. What it means is a feast day is you've upped your calories a little bit more. You've upped your carbs a little bit more if you're doing a low carb diet. And it keeps your body guessing, and it keeps you in metabolic flexibility. So those are things. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And that's really more important for women because of the cyclic nature of their month to month. So this is our new way of eating, right? New rules about eating. Time restricted eating guidelines would be the first meal of the day. You call it breakfast no matter what time because it's breaking your fast. So breakfast could be at 8 in the morning. It could be 2 in the afternoon. But you have that first meal. The second meal, some call it lunch. You might call it your dinner because you're only doing 2 meals a day. And if you're doing a third meal, it's optional. But there's no eating between meals. We're not eating more than 3 meals. We're just eating 3 meals. And what happens is that window between the meals becomes that fasting period, right? And the longer you can make that distance between the meals, the more of the benefits of fasting that you're going to get. Fasting, healing happens during fasting. Building happens during eating. And the window for eating is a meal, and then it takes a good 2 to 3 hours, usually 3, before the signs of that meal are down, and then you're back to the fasting biochemistry. And then no late night eating, really important. Now you're going to be working with people, or you may be having a very different eating approach than this. And it's really a matter of moving slowly. It's a matter of just, okay, let's just extend the time between dinner and bedtime a little bit more until it's at least 3 or 4 hours. Let's extend the time between last meal and first meal so that it's at least 12 and then a little bit more if possible. And it's just a new way of looking at food. The thing is, this is the way our ancestors ate, because they didn't have 7-Eleven and Burger King to just drive into when they got hungry. They had to go and forage for their food. They had to go hunt for their food. So they had this discrete eating. So what are the effects of intermittent fasting? There's a lot of really positive effects. It gives the digestive system a needed break. Like when there's no food going through the digestive tract, it can finally heal. But if you've got somebody with inflammation in their gut or a leaky gut, and you're constantly feeding it, oh my God, that's going to just keep irritating it. Like as if you had a big open wound on your arm and you get sticking it in dirty dishwater. It's not going to heal very fast. So it gives your digestive tract a needed break. And in doing so, it diverts that energy that would have been used to deal with the food, to internal healing, which most people need. Reduces insulin levels and improves insulin sensitivity, which improves so many things that we talked about so far in the metabolic realm. It lowers the blood pressure, right? It decreases the risk of stroke and heart attack. It decreases lipid peroxidation in men. This is a study that said intermittent fasting actually decreased lipid peroxidation in men with prediabetes and increases the fat breakdown. And it reduces ghrelin and increases leptin, which are the appetite regulating hormones. And the cool part about reducing ghrelin is it increases growth hormone. Growth hormone will help us to store lean and break down fat and also replace good lean tissue. So if you do a lot of exercise and you're doing muscle building and you're eating every couple of hours, we're suppressing growth hormone, which is needed to build those muscles. So what's dry fasting? Dry fasting is something that has me a little bit perplexed and scared about, but mainly from a personal perspective, there's not a lot of studies on it, let's just say, but it's basically you're not eating or drinking for some period of time. Clearly, you can't go as long without water as you can without food. In terms of our needs, right, our metabolic needs, we need air. Excuse me, we can't go more than a few hours without air. We can't go more than a few days without water, and we can go, a few weeks to 6 weeks to 8 weeks as long. I don't know how long the longest fast was, but it's way more than, close to 2 months or more. So what our body can adapt. So we can't go too long without it, but there's supposedly benefits to dehydration. Actually raises blood sugar. So why would I go without water? But fasting lowers blood sugar. And they find that when you put them together, you get really fast onset of ketosis, which means the body's going to go towards the fat to burn it. And the idea is that the fat contains water stored in there. And so when we break down the fat, we provide the water, the hydration that our body needs. So that's the theory behind it. You do need to be careful with it. I haven't tried it yet. Try it yourself before you ever recommend it with somebody else, but watch for really serious signs like that lightheadedness, wooziness, things that might indicate that it's problematic. Watch your blood pressure, etc. I think more research and clinical trials are needed before I feel comfortable recommending it, but I know some people who have done it very successfully. It requires close monitoring, in my opinion. So let's go geeky for a little bit. There's a chemical called adenosine 5-monophosphate activated protein kinase. It's a mouthful. It's AMPK for short. So it's known as the master regulator of energy metabolism. It works as an energy sensor within the cells. And it tends to decrease with age, like a lot of things decrease with age, right? Our growth hormone secretion, our DHEA, our stomach acids, collagen support. Things happen as we age. The body gets, and it doesn't have to decrease dramatically, but it does tend to decrease with age. But increases in it, doing things that increase AMPK, I've actually been associated with a 20 to 30% increase in lifespan. Helps to reduce belly fat. And a lot of us have belly fat. A lot of you maybe have belly fat. It increases insulin sensitivity, which again helps us to get sugar into the cells, helps everything function better, and then lowers the blood glucose, which decreases the risks of hyperglycemia. It reduces cholesterol and triglyceride production, which would help with, the decreasing the risk of plaque buildup. It suppresses chronic inflammation, right? That inflammation that gets into the joints, it gets into the stomach, it gets into all the tissues in the body and creates havoc. It increases autophagy, activates autophagy, which we'll talk about in a bit, is basically the gobbling up of these used up bad cells. And it appears that fasting potentiates AMPK. So all this stuff about AMPK and what's important for, because fasting is one of the things that potentiates it. So why not do some fasting to help to increase the AMPK to get all of these amazing benefits? And, a lot of the benefits of fasting come from increasing of AMPK and activating autophagy. So far we've covered why fasting in the modern world. People have discovered that this ancient art of fasting has actually been shown to have metabolic imbalance correction properties just by checking it. So it's like, okay, now we have some science behind it. And we've looked at the ins and outs of the different types of fasting. Let's go in and look at how do you eat while achieving the benefits of fasting, and who should do it and who should proceed with caution. So who are our best candidates for fasting? Well, somebody who's overweight and hasn't been responsive to calorie restriction is certainly a good candidate, assuming other things are in place. Somebody with a lot of digestive complaints and just keeps doing various things and tried this candida cleanse and this and that, may need to just give their digestive tract a serious rest. People who have chronic conditions that aren't responsive to other treatments, it's like, well, let's just get rid of the toxicity on a deeper level. And this is for me. I had headaches. I had constant sinus drip. I had burning pains in my stomach. I had brain fog. And unbeknownst to me, I had fatigue, because if I didn't drink my black tea and my Diet Coke all day long, I would fall asleep at the wheel getting home from work. And I would literally have to stop at the nearest Dunkin' Donuts or whatever was by the side and get a black tea or a Coke. Healthy individuals who want to optimize their health, and I do fasting on a regular basis. I try to do a 5-day fast every month or two, and I do intermittent fasting on a regular basis throughout the week, almost every day. People with insulin resistance and type 2, and I've actually guided people through this process, and the most severe case was someone who had been on insulin and metformin and some blood pressure medication, and he wanted to do this. He heard about my experience with it. He wanted to do it, begged and pleaded with me, and I worked with him with daily check-ins. What did you eat? What are your ketones? What are your glucose? How are you feeling? About halfway through, about 2 weeks in, he started to have some woozy, lightheaded symptoms. I had him get his electrolytes checked. Also had him be working with his doctor on how do you decrease your medication. The doctor had showed him how to decrease his insulin little by little. And by a little after 2 weeks, he was off his insulin and was weaning off his metformin as well. And then the blood pressure medication. So by the end, he was off all medication. But I had him get his electrolytes checked. And this is a risk you run, is that the electrolytes get out of balance, especially if somebody is coming from an unhealthy lifestyle rather than a really optimized individual. Checked the electrolytes. His magnesium was low. His sodium was low. We put him on a little salt in his water and magnesium drops. Everything came back. He felt great, and he finished out the thing. He wanted to. I was a little nervous and was saying, okay, if you don't feel better, then go ahead and just start eating again. But he was determined that he was going to go 28 days, and he did. Autoimmune diseases, it's amazing for, because it helps to decrease inflammation and increase the sensitivity of tissues to the hormones. And it's just phenomenal for autoimmune conditions. Hypertension, yeah, really important. I mean, it brings the blood sugar down. Cancer. And then, but all of these are things that you've got to have people make sure if they have a condition, but they're checking in with their doctor. I mean, you don't want to guide people through 28-day fasts. I have a lot of experience with it. I've been through it myself, and I've been doing this for almost, 27 years is a long time. I've had the experience, and I was hesitant, and I'm not sure that I would do that on a regular basis. I only did it because he was a husband of a friend, and I knew him well, and I knew I could check in, and I knew that she lived with him, and she could be checking, and she could be helping with it. So I agreed to do it. But I don't guide people through fast, long-term fasts, but short ones, sure, absolutely. So, but who do you have to be careful with? Well, people with eating disorders have to be really careful because it might trigger. If you have an active eating disorder, fasting is just going to feed into your eating disorder. So it's probably not a good idea. If you're recovering from an eating disorder and you feel real strong and confident that it's not going to, but test it. Just go a little bit of time. And if you start to feel that you're dipping into that eating disorder pattern, then be careful and do the fasting thing that I'm going to talk to you about, the eating while fasting. If you're pregnant or nursing, absolutely not. Underweight, severe underweight or malnourished, a little underweight, right at normal weight. It's no big deal because you can lose weight and then put it back on. But somebody who's undernourished is really important, or severely underweight is going to be malnourished. Fasting's not the ideal approach. It's really rebuilding and then maybe short periods of fasting once the rebuilding has occurred. Medications really have to be careful. If someone's on insulin or blood pressure medication, which my person was, blood thinners or NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, you just have to be careful and monitor. And if they're under the care of a doctor, the doctor needs to know that they're going to be doing this and that they're going to be checking in and wanting to get regular testing to make sure that they don't get into trouble. I had the insulin and blood pressure medications and blood sugar medications. And you have to be careful because if they're on insulin and they're fasting, their blood sugar can dip super, super low. And that can be very dangerous, very dangerous. And that's why working with the doctor to say, as your blood sugar goes down, go and, start to lower your dose. And I had warned him if it starts to go below 90, that he needs to check in with the doctor about lowering the insulin because it could quickly drop from there, from 90 down into the 50s or 60s, and can be dangerous, especially if they're in a situation where they're not building up the ketones. The beauty of it is usually you build up the ketones. And I watched with the person I was working with that as his blood sugar came down, his blood ketones came up. Had I seen that the blood sugar was staying high and the ketones were staying high, that would be a red flag for ketoacidosis. So that's why when he started to have those symptoms, I had them check the ketones, check the sugar, check the pH. His pH was still not, it wasn't highly acidic. His blood sugar was, I think it was in the 60s, or it was probably in the 80s at that point. And his ketones were, probably around 5 or 6. So I was fine with all that. But you got to be careful with that, really careful. You don't want to get somebody into trouble. And type 1 diabetics, really, if I wouldn't do any fasting with somebody with type 1 diabetes unless you go to a fasting retreat where somebody's had a lot of experience with it and they're going to watch you like a hawk and really be careful. And then hypotension, low blood pressure, because fasting does lower your blood pressure. And if somebody's starting out with 80 over 60 as a blood pressure, it's going to go low, and you got to be really, really careful with those people. And there are some ways that you can help them and to bring it up and all that, but that's out of the scope of this presentation. So a lot of people say, well, I can't go long periods of time. Every time I try to go, if I try to go more than 12 hours without eating, or 16 or whatever, I get shaky. I get irritable. I just feel awful. My heart races. And when the heart races during a fasting period, it's generally speaking that is putting a stress on the body, and it's creating an influx of adrenaline. So we got to be careful with that. So Dr. Walter Longo discovered that you can actually create a diet that mimics the effects of fasting. And he studied this, and he wrote about it in his book called The Longevity Diet. I don't necessarily agree with everything in his book because of some of the dietary things that he has. It's a little more, what's the word? I think not, not congruent with what I believe people with chronic illness should be eating. But anyway, there's some things in there that I don't agree with. But the concept of the fasting mimicking diet is brilliant, and the research was brilliant. So it's a low calorie, low carb. I forgot to change that slide. It's a low calorie. Oh yeah, it is low calorie, low carb, and low protein and moderate fat diet. And moderate fat, it's really a higher percentage of fat compared to everything else, but it's low calorie, so it can't be high fat or high anything really. But it's a low percentage of carbs, a low percentage of protein, and more fat. And it's plant based. You do it 5 days out of a month. And it gives benefits similar to fasting. So I'm going to go through some of the details of what's included in that diet. He created a kit that you can buy, like everybody wants the fast and easy way to it, which has the balance of everything. The kit, yeah, for me, it was not up to my standards because I'm really picky. The food wasn't organic and it's packaged stuff, but it's phenomenal for people who are transitioning. They're on a standard American diet, or they're on fast food, or a healthy junk food diet, or a plant-based junk diet. It's a great transition. For those of us who are on a really pristine diet already, to me, I'd rather do it with food. But anyway, that's what it looks like. But the downsides of it is it's expensive. The benefits that he found was that in doing this fasting mimicking diet, he increased human growth hormone. And it costs about $225 for a 5-day plan for that, or $250, something like that. So it's close to $50 a day when we can actually do it with food, if the patient's motivated. If not, have them get this kit because it's way better than what they're doing right now. So increased growth hormone secretion. It removes a lot of the cancerous and precancerous cells, just like fasting does. It improves the immune system functioning, improves the functioning of the macrophages and the lymphocytes and everything that's involved in immune system, keeping us healthy. And it helps with fat burning, definitely. And part of that is just because it's low cal. It's going to, of course, help us with fat burning. But a lot of folks go on low cal diets, and they've been on for a long time, like 600 to 1,000 calorie a day diets, and they're not burning fat because they've downregulated their metabolism. And this doesn't seem to downregulate the metabolism. And it's intermittent, right? So you're only doing it for 5 days out of the month. It causes a rapid shift to nutritional ketosis. Some people require fasting to shift into nutritional ketosis. And usually by the 3rd or 4th day of fasting, somebody will shift into nutritional ketosis. With this, they shift into that within these 5 days while eating. And it's hard to do that while eating in general if you're eating without paying attention to the macronutrient ratios. Definitely stimulates autophagy, which we're going to get into exactly what that is, and apoptosis. And I'll just give you a quick summary of what the difference is. Autophagy is breaking down and eating up the cells that are bad, like identifying the bad and gobbling up the components of those cells. Apoptosis is programmed cell death. And our cells are supposed to do that when they get to the natural end of life. They pop, they explode, they die. Decreased oxidative stress and inflammation. And oxidative stress is what causes tissue damage. It causes cancer. It causes the damage that leads to plaque buildup that causes heart disease. And inflammation, of course, is involved in all of the inflammatory diseases, the external ones like fibromyalgia and arthritis and joint pains and things like that, but also the internal ones like gastritis and Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and all of those. It increased mental performance and BDNF. So increases the ability, the mental capacity, the memory capacity, and BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It helps to support and nourish brain tissue. And he also found that there were some psychological benefits to doing this, like losing that dependency on food and that emotional craving towards food. And decrease fat loss through ketosis. By shifting into ketosis, we force the body to burn fat. And if you go on a low cal diet and you don't allow your body to shift into ketosis, it's still looking for glucose. So it starts to break down muscle and organ tissue and other things that have protein to create branched chain amino acids in that. When we do things to stimulate the fat burnout, when we stimulate ketosis, it stimulates the fat burning, and that's a good thing. It reduces C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker that has been implicated in cardiovascular and cancer and all kinds of other inflammatory diseases, and improves gene expression. So the good positive genes get expressed better. So this is a lot of benefits, right? And short of buying a kit, which a lot of people will benefit from, how can we achieve that with real food? Well, calorie intake to mimic fasting required. On day one, approximately 1,100 calories. So we're down, decreasing by about 50% of the usual calories. And on the next days, it's approximately 650 to 700, or about 35% of the usual. This is what he found in his study to be the most effective. Doesn't mean that a little bit less than that isn't going to do the trick, but I think it's enough calories to not allow the body to go into that state of reduced metabolism and to shift it into the ketosis and all the great, wonderful effects that he found. So the ratios that he did in his studies were on day one, about 34% carbs, 10% protein, 56% fat. Those carbs do include the carbs that are the fiber carbs, the carbs from the vegetables. So it's not 34% net carbs, it's 34% carbs. And then it goes up to 47, 9, and 44. There have been a lot of folks who've experimented with this and done a keto version of it where it's, 10% or less carbs, 25% protein, and 70 to 80% fat. But here's the deal. I'm not a big fan of having to calculate those percentages because they're hard to calculate. I'm a fan of experimenting and finding what works. Yes, low carb, and I say the lowest carb you can do. How do you know if the carbs are good? You measure your glucose and how that responds. You measure your ketones, right? And so if you're not getting into ketosis, it's wrong. So you can start with these as a starting point. But quite frankly, if I look at my diet, it's way more than 10% carbs, and I'm in ketosis, nutritional ketosis all the time, because it's the carbs. My carbs are fiber carbs from my vegetables. So if we talk about net carbs, then that's different, and that's a whole nother topic. And we're going to do a webinar in a couple of weeks on ketones and the whole thing with ketogenic diet. So how do we do this? I came up with this. These are the guidelines, but then I'll come up with a plan, right? So low protein, low carbohydrate, minimal or no animal products. That's how he studied it. His kit is all completely plant-based. High micronutrient content. So it has to have good vegetables in it. It has to have good things that are going to have the micronutrients, 30 to 50% of the RDI. Of course, if you're eating half the calories or 35% of the calories that you normally would eat, you're going to get less of those micronutrients, but you want to still keep it high. You don't want your calories to all come from coconut oil, right? That's not going to do the trick. The proteins should be derived from plant-based sources. The 5 cups of cruciferous vegetables I kind of added that part, but I think that gives us enough of, the balance. With the 5 cups, a certain number of calories, and calculated that, and that's going to work. Some of the things that you want for the detox affects the sulfur, like half an onion, 3 cloves of garlic, or a leek will give you that sulfur to really stimulate the detox. And I believe that some people don't tolerate the sulfur because of genetic SNPs and because of gut imbalances. So you have to work with that and work with a person. That may not be possible. I love to include the cucumber, squash, and other high water content vegetables. Low glycemic fruit, but minimal, right? Maybe it's a half an apple. Maybe it's a handful of blueberries if your blood sugar tolerates it and doesn't go up. If you do that and you put in the fruit and you find that the blood sugar goes up and the ketones don't come up, then we want to eliminate that. So I usually have it eliminating the fruit the first time and then build it back up. But if you're working with somebody who's on a standard American diet who's scared of this, then you put in the low glycemic fruit. You make this balance so that they can follow it, or you have them get the kit so they know that they're getting the right ratios. Avocados, nuts, seeds, olives, coconut can all be used for the fat. You can do herbal teas as much as you want throughout the day, and even on the fasting pieces, as long as there's no sweetener or non-dairy creamer or anything like that in there, you can drink just plain herbal tea even in the fasting windows. And then you could add in somebody, especially who's thinner or has some brain issues like Alzheimer's tendencies, memory issues, you could add a tablespoon or 2 of coconut or MCT oil. Be careful with MCT because you got to go slowly. It could cause diarrhea if people aren't used to it. We'll talk more about that stuff when we do our ketone thing and in our 3-day live event, Shine, that's coming up in September. supplements that help with fasting, like eating. So if somebody wants to get that extra, electrolytes can definitely be helpful to replenish any of the loss, because as you start to burn the fat, you're going to lose water, and the water is going to suck with it the electrolytes. So taking some like ionic magnesium or a little salt in the water may be useful for some folks. For some folks who are especially athletes, taking some branched chain amino acids helps to prevent any loss of the lean muscle tissue, and you can get branched chain amino acid supplements. Any kind of greens powder to provide a lot of micronutrients can be added to a drink. I'm gonna have to fill up my water because my water is empty and I need it. So give me 5 seconds break here. All right, how we doing, everybody? We doing okay? We learning a lot? Yes? Okay. So greens powders can be some sort of combo green. It could be something like broccoli sprout powder, which would be a great one for all the detox capacity that broccoli sprouts has, and just added to a drink or added to a salad dressing or whatever the person's eating. Omega-3 supplements may be helpful. If the person's on omega-3s already, they should be staying on them. But in some cases, high dose omega-3s are necessary for inflammatory conditions or cardiac conditions. And some people benefit from exogenous ketones. People who have a hard time getting into that ketosis state will find that if they add a little bit of extra exogenous ketones, be careful with the exogenous ketones, because be careful with exogenous ketones because some of them contain caffeine. There's a couple that I like. I really like the one flavor-wise from Designs for Health. Not that I'm plugging any particular company. Julian Bakery has one too. Has kind of an orange flavor to it. But I've tried them and I don't need them because my body just naturally goes into ketosis. But some people have a hard time getting into ketosis, so it might be helpful. So what have we covered so far? Fasting and why it's important, the different kinds of fasting. We just talked about how to each while achieving the benefits. We talked about who should proceed with caution and who gets the most out of it. So now I want to talk about the magic of autophagy. How do you measure it and how do you achieve it for optimal health? So autophagy is quoted as the body's process of recycling its own damaged tissue into usable energy during times when food isn't present. Doesn't that sound like really good? Damaged tissue being used as energy? And in times when food isn't present. Well, it's there to protect us for sure when we're in famine. But what if we deliberately don't eat food? So what actually is it? So we have all these damaged components. They're cell components and proteins and organelles of the cells, and they're damaged. And we create this membrane that forms around it and then partitions it off. And that partitioned off piece is called an autophagosome. And then we have this thing called a lysosome, which is basically enzymes that can break it down. And the lysosomes will go in and, gobble everything up and turn it into usable fuel. So that's basically the process. There's some really detailed charts I didn't want to get into too much on, but because we could spend an hour on it. And at our Shine conference, which is coming up in September, we're going to be having a lot more talk on that. In fact, Mike Mutzel is going to go into that. He's got an hour and a half of presentation on that, and I'm going to go into a lot more. We have 3 days to go into this stuff in real big depth. There's some studies on autophagy. It's crucial for NRF2 activation, which is really important for the mitochondria. And activation of the mitochondria is super important because that's what fuels every cell. And if we don't have good mitochondrial action, then none of our cells or organs can perform properly. There's these autophagy regulatory proteins that reduce the survival of melanoma cells. Is that cool or what? Like melanoma is a serious skin cancer, not like basal cell where it's, it's considered relatively innocuous. You cut it out and it's gone. Not that it's innocuous that a person got it. If they got it, that means that there's an imbalance that needs to be addressed. But melanoma can be deadly. So it actually protects against melanoma. It protects melanoma. It protects bronchial tissue that's in the lungs from necrosis, breakdown from necrosis. So that's really important because that happens a lot in, well, smokers can use that kind of protection. Fasting causes bad cell eating and increases the number of powerful stem cells. So when we go into this fasting state and we get into autophagy, we're actually increasing stem cells. Stem cells are those early on stages cells that they're like infancy state cells that help to regenerate and repair. And you can spend a lot of money going in and having yourself injected with stem cells, either your own or somebody else's. And so fasting is like a cheap version of stem cell injection. So it's really cool, the kind of stuff that happens with autophagy. So how do you measure autophagy and whether you're in autophagy or not? Well, there's something called the glucose ketone index. And I give you a link there, copy it down. Just go to ketomojo.com and look up the glucose ketone index. And they have this chart there that tells you how to measure it. So you can basically take your glucose reading. If you're in the US and your glucose reading is like 90 or 100, that kind of range, then you divide it by 18. If you're in Europe or Canada, you just use the straight glucose number, like 5 or 6 or whatever. So we basically divide by 18, and then we divide it by the ketones. So for example, in say just a normal state, somebody's not fasting, they woke up in the morning, they measure their glucose and it's 85. We divide 85 by 18, and what do we get? Let's just do that real quick. We divide 85 divided by 18, and we get 4.72. Normally a person who's in 85, not doing anything special, their ketones are probably going to be either 0 or 0.2. So let's just say they're about 0.2. So we're going to divide that by 0.2. So we had 85 divided by 18 equals divided by 0.2. That ratio is 23. So look at the bottom, greater than 9, you're not in any kind of ketosis, right? But say we start to do some fasting or intermittent fasting and the glucose drops down to, let's just say 70. And the ketones go up to, let's say the ketones at 70, I'm just going by my own experience, might go up to 2. So let's divide that by 2. And now we're at 1.9. Now we look here. Wow, we're getting closer. You're in a therapeutic level of ketosis. Yay, right? 1.3, you're in a therapeutic level. And you're not in the highest level. You're not in max, but you're having autophagy happening. Yay. You reach your maximum of autophagy. I usually get there by the end of the first day of fasting now, but it used to be by the third day. I will get to something like my glucose is 45. These are actual numbers I've had. And my ketones are 6.5. Okay. Let me do this. So 45 divided by 18 divided by, what did I say? 6.5. My autophagy number is like 0.8, something like that. Let me just do this again. I did that wrong. 45 divided by 18 equals 2.5. And then I divide my 2.5 by my 6.5 and it's 0.3. Right? And that's an excellent state. Anytime we get to 1, right? So 1 would be, let's just say a good ketone number. Let's just say the ketones are at 3. That would be about, let's just say 56 divided by 18 divided by 3. You're almost at that 1, right? So you have to get your glucose low and your ketones high to be at the max state. And the only way you can achieve that, generally speaking, is with fasting. But let's see what happens with the fasting mimicking diet. Some people might be over time be able to get there. Some people take a longer time. It takes repeated fasts and intermittent fasts over the course of months to come back and be able to have this autophagy happening at a good state. So it's a really great thing to be striving for. And it's something, I love the fact that you can measure it and use this chart. You can find this chart if you go to the ketone index on Keto Mojo. So we've covered so far the art of fasting, the different types, how to achieve the benefits while eating, who should proceed with caution, and who can do it easily, autophagy. Next, we're going to talk about, we talked about the diet variation, and let me hit on that a little bit more. We talked about that briefly, and we're actually going to talk about that more when we talk about fasting for women. So let's just go there. And then we're going to talk about the metabolic summary of the metabolic improvements. So intermittent fasting has been found not to be as effective for some women as it is for men. Not all, because I do it beautifully. I do it well, and a lot of women I know do, but a lot of women, probably more cyclical women than menopausal. I think postmenopausal women tend to do it more easily because we're not at the whim of our hormones constantly changing. One study showed that blood sugar control worsened after 3 weeks of intermittent fasting with premenopausal women. The problem is when the calorie intake gets low, the gonadotrophin releasing factor, GnRH, which is produced by the hypothalamus, has a lowering effect. And what happens with that is it lowers the levels of LH and FSH, which lowers the levels of progesterone and estrogen. So it screws up with somebody's cycle. And we know that women who are on prolonged low-cal diets or extreme weight, muscle building, weight training people end up losing cycles and skipping cycles when they do too much low caloric intake. So you really have to work with it. And the way that women work best with it is to have more diet variation and modifications to the the fasting approach, right? So here's some suggested modifications for women. So fast for 12 to 16 hours, only 2 days a week on non-consecutive days, but don't try to do the 24-hour fasts and fully fasting. So start with the 12, do it 1 day a week, see how it goes, make sure it's non-consecutive days. Don't do the intermittent fasting every day. Like I do it every day pretty much, maybe take a day or two off a week. And then 12 to 16 hours. So start with that. Don't try to go longer. Start with the 12 and work your way up. And if you're doing alternate day fasting, actually, instead of fasting on the alternate days, just do a calorie restriction, like the fasting mimicking type diet. So 20 to 25% of the usual calorie intake on the fasting day may help you get the benefits without having to actually get the downside of the not eating and throwing off your menstrual cycles. And eat well during the non-fasting periods. Don't try to scrimp and have low cal during the non-fasting. Actually use it as true intermittent. And when women do this, it helps them to be more prone to be able to get the benefits of the intermittent fasting without the downsides. So it's a modified intermittent fasting, modified fasting for women who have trouble with this. And it goes for men who have trouble with it too, but women are more likely. So when we talk about the keeping the body guessing, what we mean is that, and this is pretty much that, we're not like every day doing intermittent fasting for 12 to 16 hours or 16 hours. We're alternating it. So maybe there's 1 day a week where there's a 24-hour fast and another day a week where you're not even thinking about it at all. You're just eating well, still eating 3 meals a day, 3 good meals a day with a little bit higher calorie and carb intake than you normally would. And then you go back to a fast day, a low carb day, whatever works well for you. And you keep the body guessing, because when the body doesn't have the time to guess, it gets stable and you reach plateaus. And then the diet that you were on before is no longer working for you because your body's plateaued. So let's summarize the metabolism effects that fasting has. And we've talked about this throughout. It's really a summary. So you get that fasting is a good antidote to metabolic imbalances. Metabolic imbalances lead to all of our serious diseases. Increased metabolic rate, increased antioxidants, reversal of aging markers, increase in chemicals that are important for specific metabolism and microbiome health. Increase in Krebs cycle, the energy cycle in the body, improved protein synthesis, improved insulin sensitivity, decreased inflammation, stimulation of autophagy, improved blood pressure, triglycerides, cholesterol, improved mental energy and clarity. Now, if we had a drug that did all this without side effects, without having, causing liver damage, would that drug be like the miracle cure that everybody wanted? If we had a supplement that did all this without any negative side effects, it would be front page news. But this is just a simple, ancient process called fasting, and we can do it without having to go without food for long periods of time, but going for short periods of time and alternating them can have all of these benefits. Sure, if you do a 28-day fast or a 10-day fast or a 5-day fast, it's going to accelerate this, but not everybody can or will do that. So I think it's an amazing thing. So here's what we covered. the ancient art of fasting in the modern world. How can we do this in the modern world? What are the different types of fasting? How do you eat while achieving the benefits of fasting? Who should do it? Who should be careful? Autophagy and why it's so amazing, diet variation, fasting for women, and the metabolic improvement seen with fasting. We covered everything we set out to cover. And I just want you to know that the people you see, they're unfocused, they're foggy, they're having trouble with energy. And what they really want is to feel good and have fun with their family and live a good life. That's what we all want, right? And when you have these problems in the body, it's getting in the way. But more than that, that fatigue, that mental focus problem, the brain fog, all of those things that are nuisance symptoms are really, like I said, the tip of the iceberg for those more serious things that we need to take and help them to take action to get it under control. Help them to take the boulder out of the road. Help them to remove the obstacles, identify and remove the obstacles that are getting in their way. And you can do that as a concerned loved one, as a health practitioner, as a doctor, nurse, health coach, nutritionist, etc. But they can't see it themselves. They need us to be able to know how to help them to do that. They're always asking that question, well, what should I eat? I'm so confused. I see all this stuff on the internet about this diet and that diet and the other diet. What should I really be eating? And they need to know more. This is the state I was in when I was struggling, when I was in my mid-20s. And I was like, what do I eat? What do I do? I need to know more. And that's where I left my job and went back to school and studied and got all my degrees in chiropractic and nutrition and acupuncture and herbal medicine. So I would know more to be able to help more people. And that's the situation you're in right now. Do you need to know more to be able to help more people? I went back to school to get all this. You don't have to quit your job and go back to school to get what you need to be an amazing practitioner to be able to help these people. I learned that the foods I was choosing were what was causing my health to fall apart. And I learned to use different foods. And I wanted to help others to do that same thing. And you're here today because you're either concerned about your family members or yourself and want to choose differently, or you're a practitioner and you want to have other options because you're tired of the this for that approach that isn't really getting people well. That you know that there's all kinds of other things and there's all kinds of ways to implement these things. And I learned for myself when I was struggling that I needed to address not just the food, not just doing fasting and detoxifying, but I needed to address these other aspects. And now I feel great in my 60s and I have so much energy and I'm ready to share this with everybody that wants to be there and hear it because my health was totally falling apart then. So let's let people get in touch with their visions and really be able to move towards that vision, whether their vision is to be able to climb Mount Everest and, carry a backpack and take pictures, or whether it is just to roll on the floor and play with their grandkids, or to be able to just every day create healthy meals for their family or start a new career in healthcare. We have people who join our programs, by the way, who are in their 60s and 70s starting new careers. It's never too late. So I would like to invite you to take a deeper dive into this topic, metabolic disorders. We touched on it. I gave you some great information that you can use right away. But if you want to go deeper with me, then just make a commitment to come join me for my nutritional endocrinology annual seminar, where we deep dive into nutritional endocrinology, which is the art of modifying the hormone expression through nutrition. And by the way, everything is hormone. And we'll talk about that more later. So we're doing a seminar on September 27th to 29th. Some of you who are in like our insulin resistance or digestive mastery or practitioner, NEPT practitioner, probably already got an invitation to join us as our guests. We give you a free ticket there. But you, a regular ticket, you just show up and get all the benefits of 3 days of amazing stuff. It's a beautiful location, so it's actually a nice retreat for you. The food we serve is totally amazing. The people you meet are totally amazing. You're going to get 3 days of in-depth trainings with me and special speakers. We're going to go into much more depth on all of this and more. You're going to have digital access to everything we're doing, all the slides, and we're going to give you some done for you protocol sheets that you can use right away, recipes, plans that you can use to modify and help your people. So by the time you hit the ground running, when you leave here, you have tools that you can put into practice right away. We're also going to provide at the VIP level additional recorded trainings and worksheets that make it easy for you to get started right away. And we're going to help you after the session to help you put it into practice. You're going to be able to network with amazing people. People have made best friends who have made business partners by coming to these events. And we're going to feed you. The VIP ticket includes all these meals, 3 meals at breakfast, 3 meals at lunch, a reception and meet the speakers dinner on Saturday night. And the food is organic as much as possible. If not, we won't serve anything that's in the dirty dozen that's not organic. And it's free from gluten and dairy and common allergens, low glycemic, and addressing metabolic disorders. We're going to do some food making demos and show you how you can incorporate food making demos into your practice. We're going to give you a bag of gift from our amazing sponsors who also donate raffle prizes. And you could, for less than the price of your ticket, you can walk away not only with 3 days of training, amazing meals, and amazing friendships, but you could walk away with some amazing prizes as well. So you're going to learn from authors and some of the top doctors in the functional medicine space today. And here's some of the people that are going to be there speaking. Dr. Tom O'Brien on sweet thoughts when food is not enough. Let me say this again. Sweet thoughts when not enough or too much of a good thing fuels cognitive impairment. So he's going to talk about the brain impacts of all this. Mike Mutzel is going to talk about exercise, fasting, and autophagy. He's going to go into the science behind this so that you understand how you can promote optimal cellular regeneration. Dr. Hopkins is going to talk about the advanced biomarkers of metabolism, the ones that most doctors aren't doing or talking about, the ones that I believe that had my parents' doctors done would have detected early signs of heart disease, and we could have had them done things if they were willing in their diet and lifestyle to save themselves. And Dr. Anna Kebeka is going to talk about hormones and the menopause of the hormones of menopause and the effect of diet. And she's had amazing results with using modified ketogenic type diets in helping women in menopause. They're going to be there as well. I'm also going to have somebody coming in to talk to you about marketing, how to get out to the community. So I believe that there's 3 aspects of you becoming that best practitioner you can be. You have to take care of you. And that's what we incorporate into our seminar. You're going to take care of you because there's yoga breaks, there's great foods, it's great things. And we're going to remind you constantly to be taking care of you. Clinical mastery, being around me just by hearing this presentation, that's where I'm at, is really helping you with the science. And that's where our speakers are going to help you with the clinical mastery. And then there's authentic business and marketing strategies. And I started to say, I just arranged with a really good friend of mine who is an amazing speaker, marketing trainer. She's going to come in and talk to you about how to take what you learn in this 3-day event and turn it into a signature talk that you can go out into your community and use to generate clientele. So I'm very excited about what we have set up for you. As a result of attending this, I guarantee that you're going to feel more confident. You're going to have the joy of celebrating your clients' and patients' success, and the satisfaction of knowing that you're contributing to these people having a better life. I know that some of you who are in the medical field who maybe are, at the end of the day, it's really just about keeping people alive. Prolonging death is how a medical doctor, colleague of mine's put it. He said, I left standard medicine because I get tired of prolonging death. I wanted to help people to live their life to their full potential. And then he got into this space of functional nutrition and medicine and anti-aging. And so I love that concept. And if you're in the medical profession, if you're a nurse practitioner or an MD who's in that mode of what you've been taught, which, it's great for saving lives and it's great for acute care, but we need more to have people to be able to step into their greatness. And if you're tired of just prolonging death for people, let's just help you get to the point where you can help them to live their fullest life. And all this, the 3 days of trainings, all the meals, the gifts, the digital access to the materials, and so much more, we're offering to you for $497 now. It's on special. Our early bird pricing, which is good till the end of July, I think, I can't remember when the early bird goes through, is $597, but we're even slapping off an extra $100 when you register by tomorrow night. We're trying to get locked into how many people are going to be in the space so we can reserve the right size room and let our hotel and our venue know, and so the caterer knows and all that. So we're going to give you $497 for all of that, including all the materials you get afterwards, all the PDFs and the checklists and the recipes and the training after the event and the training before the event. And it's all just $497. And here's how you do it. Hopefully my team will put up the picture that you can go to. And why is it not moving? It's not moving. There you go. ShineLiveConference.com is where you can sign up. If you have gotten an email, if you were in our NEPT program or IRSPT, you should have gotten an email that gives you a different link that gets you access to your bonus ticket. Cash in your bonus ticket. Highly recommend that you upgrade to VIP when you get your bonus ticket to get all of what I explained here and some extra bonuses I'm going to tell you about in a moment. The bonuses are worth way more than the price of the ticket. So we're trying to make it a no-brainer for you. My goal is to create a world where this health care is a norm. This kind of stuff that can save someone else's parents since it didn't save mine. I want this to be the norm, and that's why I'm willing to train people, and that's why I'm doing it for such a minimal investment that barely covers our cost. So bonuses. I always like to include incentive for you to make a quick decision. This is really an amazing opportunity, and even if you decide you can't come, don't cancel it. Sign up, but don't cancel it because we'll send you all the bonuses. So that's what, is a really great thing, and they're worth way more. The first quick action bonus when you register, I originally did this on a few days ago, so you have to register by the end of tomorrow, is the genetics of blood sugar imbalance. It's a video presentation I talked about with charts and slides and a recording and a transcript that you get to actually see. Does this person or do you have the genetics that lead you towards blood sugar imbalance, and how much more careful you have to be? Amazing presentation. One of our MDs in the NEPT program had just gone back and was revisiting some of her modules. And she said, oh my God, I just found this new thing you added, the genetics of blood sugar imbalance. It's so amazing, right? I can't wait to get all the way through. So that's a value of $197. You're going to get it free when you sign up with the ShineLiveConference.com. If you're a bonus ticket, you have to sign up and then upgrade it to the VIP. Quick action bonus number 2, when you register, and we're going to extend this to tomorrow night, you're going to get all of the genetics charts, the videos, and all the handouts from last year's Shine. It has these amazing genetics charts that I put together along with Lynn, who you probably have met on the chat. She and I put these charts. It was a labor of love to get these charts put together to make it easy for you to identify gene imbalances and then the lifestyle choices that these people with these gene imbalances absolutely must be doing. You're going to get that absolutely free. If you go to my website to buy it, it's $497 just for that, because it's a lot of great information, and it's complete videos from 3 days. It's all digital. There's the charts, there's the handouts, and it's all amazing. And you get all of that when you register by tomorrow night. And then there's a VIP quick action bonus number 2. This is only for the first 10 who register, by the end of today, actually. If it's the Authentic Business and Marketing Practice Business Success System. Okay, let me say this again. We talk about authentic business and marketing, and it's the practice PBSS. Yeah. Practice Building Success System. I put the wrong. Ooh, that's a typo. Sorry about that. That's why it's so confusing. The Practice Building Success System is a vault, and it's a training vault that we have that includes 5 trainings that I put together, plus some advanced trainings that have come from some of our just guest speakers that I've had in, like Bill Barron and Charlotte Jacobs, and who else has been in there? A lot of people. I can't even remember all of them. There's probably a dozen of them. And that it's a vault. It's basically a training vault that you're going to get access to. The first 10 will get access to. So hurry up and sign up and get your ticket. shineliveconference.com. I will say that anybody that signs up before, when I offer a bonus that's the first 10, usually anybody that signed up before gets it. Okay. So I will extend that to those folks who registered early, because I'm not going to penalize you for registering early. And I will say that if I add more bonuses, which I usually do, to this package, the people that sign up after tomorrow will not get any of those bonuses that I added before. So none of these bonuses that I'm giving you will they get, but you will get all the bonuses that they get. Got it? So there's an advantage to signing early. It's kind of like that surprise grab bag. It's like, oh, I'm going to get more stuff and I don't know what it is yet. I can't wait to see. So I highly recommend that you sign up now, shineliveconference.com. Even if you're unsure that you can actually physically make it in person, I'd still sign up, because these bonuses are going to be well worth it. Just the bonuses alone. All right. So quick recap. The genetics of blood sugar imbalance, so you can be able to help people to know where their genes are and what that they can do. That's specifically a chart related to blood sugar imbalance. Then there's the videos, the whole conference of genetics from last year, our Shine conference. And then there's the quick action bonus, number 3, which is our practice building success system. And that is going to be for the first 10 that sign up by tomorrow night. Today. Well, I'll make it to tomorrow night to give you a chance to book your flights and all that. So everybody that signs up by tomorrow night will also get that, the first 10 that sign up by tomorrow night. Okay? Sorry, I'm confusing you. Been a long presentation. So as a recap, you get everything, the trainings, the meals, the gifts, the digital access to the materials, and so much more. And being part of the community and being with us in person for 3 days and really getting your fuel going for getting out in the world and sharing this information. It's all going to be just $497. The $497 price does go up after the end of tomorrow. So the 15th, it's back up to $597, which is the regular early bird price. So you're getting $100 off the early bird price. And you'll see that reflected when you go to the page at shineliveconference.com. So here's the thing. Don't exchange what you want in a moment for what you want most, or don't exchange what you want most for what you want in the moment. A lot of people do this. I see it all the time. I see people that want that chocolate cake, or they want that thing that they know is going to hurt them. And they know what they want. They really want to feel good and healthy and strong and avoid chronic disease and be able to live the life to their fullest. But instead they trade it for those consistent pizzas and beers and Cokes and whatever else. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for your clients. And I want you to reinforce this for them. Identify what you want most and hold sight of it. I was teasing somebody the other day about this and they thought it was funny. So I thought I would share it with you. You know, there's things that draw your attention, like, wow, I really want that. Wow, I really want that. But they're at the expense of something else. So if you're in a relationship, a long-term, steady relationship, and you can appreciate a good, person walking by that's attractive to you, that you go, wow, that person's really attractive. I wonder what they're like. I wonder what would, but you're not going to jump in and risk your relationship for that instant pleasure of getting to know that other person on that more intimate level. No, it doesn't work that way. You don't give up what you want the most, right? You wouldn't give up a special time with your kids to, go to a movie or something, right? Because the movie's good or you had a good offer. I really think about what you want most. Help your clients to tune into what they want most. Help your parents if they're having trouble making decisions. What do you want most, mama? I just want to I don't want my joints to hurt. I want to have good feeling joints and I want to be able to run around with the grandkids. And okay, great. Why are you going to eat that pizza? Well, because it tastes good. Why don't you eat the broccoli soup I just made you? Oh, I'd rather have the pizza. What do you want more? The pizza or healthy joints and the ability to play with your grandkids? So when you can put those choices in front of people, what do you want most? The pizza or that thing they want most? It helps, and it helps for you too. And that's what we help you to do when you come together with us for 3 days. Shine Live Conference. So it's all there, $4.97, shinelifeconference.com. And I'm going to open it up for questions. Is that posted up at the top, shinelifeconference.com? Great. Just click on the link that shows, and I'll answer your questions and see how you want to put this into action. I prefer the questions be related to the topic here. Sometimes I do these calls and somebody's asking me questions about, something that is way beyond the scope of what we asked. So let's keep our questions restricted to this metabolic diseases and metabolic disorders and the fasting whole idea. And keto can come into it as well because it's part of the ketosis is part of this whole process. So I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to look to see what questions have come up. Where do you stay? Patty asked. It's at the Hyatt Lost Pines, and we have a special rate that we arranged with them. So, and we have we have a Shine, it's a Shine, what's that thing called? A Facebook group where you can go in and you can find roommates. And that's what a lot of people do. And it's a beautiful place. And yeah, you can stay there. It's just a lovely, lovely place. Thank you for putting in the other speakers that we have in the Practice Building Success System. So I'm going to stop my slide share and I'm going to be in front of you again. There we go. All right, guys. So I know that my team has been collecting your questions because it's hard for me to follow the chat and teach at the same time because you can see I get really passionate. I get really into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that place where the questions are. And I'm also going to, where's the webinar jam? Here it is. There we go. We got some questions coming up. And so I'm going to, Catherine says, I heard 35% reduction in breast cancer recurrence for people who do intermittent fasting. Awesome statistics. There's a lot of statistics out there like that. She says, post breast cancer on tamoxifen, feeling unwell. I want my body to be strong again, and it seems out of whack with food. Yeah, so there may be some things you need to be doing, Catherine. And the tamoxifen, I don't know how far past it is. You may want to be rethinking and maybe talking to a medical doctor who can see if that really is necessary, because that creates an unwellness. It creates liver stress. It creates a lot of imbalances, and you might be able to benefit from introducing some fasting into your presentation. Erica says, thank you so much for doing this a second time. So appreciate it. I'm really glad I was able to, because the first time we did it, we had a few technical difficulties. So thank you for sharing that. Karen says, prediabetes, thyroid nodules, hypothyroidism, Lyme disease help to heal from, where is it? Yeah. So I hope you learned some really good stuff on how to heal from that. And then Jem says, it's interesting how connected seemingly desperate diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and dementia actually are related on a basic level. I have learned this from Dr. Ritamarie. It's not what I was previously taught, but it makes sense. Yes, absolutely. It totally makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. Some of the questions. Does intermittent fasting help for Parkinson? Yeah, we had that question on the couple of days before. There's a lot of studies that show that intermittent fasting can be helpful for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's as well. Linda, our systems in the body are so interconnected. Is fasting the answer to all these chronic diseases such as diabetes, cancer, heart disease? I can never say, I don't believe there's a cure or an answer for everything, but I do believe that when we get the metabolic processes in the body balanced out, that it can be helpful. And I have seen cancer reverse. I have seen autoimmune disease reverse. I have seen heart disease. I have seen all of it get better with fasting and intermittent fasting. Beatrice says, do you know if eating fat like chia seeds stops autophagy? If you're in that fasting mimicking type of state, right, where you're doing that, reduced calorie, the low carb type of thing, I don't think it stops autophagy. The fat doesn't stop autophagy, but eating a high sugar thing probably would, like eating pineapple would probably stop it. We talked about what autophagy is. Thank you for asking that question. Mary Louise, this is taking this to its logical extension, if the body always eats bad cells first, why doesn't fasting cure cancer rather than just help decrease the likelihood of its occurrence? Indeed, in fact, Mary Louise, depending on how far along the cancer is and how much impact it's had on the body, there are lots of cases of cancer reversing with fasting. Karen is, are these intermittent fasting approaches good for people with weight issues? You know, there have been studies that show that people with weight issues who try to do this to chronic lower calorie diet end up hitting a plateau and can't lose the weight. And then having the intermittent fasting, higher calorie days, lower calorie days, or fasting days actually helps to get the weight loss over time. The studies with Dr. Longo's study, he did it. He followed people over 3 months, but I actually know a doctor that followed it for a year, and he was able to lose 40 pounds, and he'd been trying before and hadn't, because it was just gradual, and the body never got adapted to that state of low calorie and just stopped burning. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Catherine asks, have you seen people with hypothyroidism be able to get off thyroid medication from fasting or metabolic reset? Yes, absolutely. In fact, Beatrice, who was on, I saw her on earlier, she's one of the ones who had been on thyroid medication since she was 14 for like 50 years. She's been on thyroid medication and had been diagnosed with Hashimoto's with antibodies up in the thousands. And she was able to get off all her medication within 4 or 5 months. So yeah. Mary Louise, what are the potential risks with NSAIDs? Well, NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, they actually damage the epithelial, the lining in the stomach, the epithelial lining, right, in the stomach and the esophagus. They can lead to reflux. They can lead to stomach ulcers. They can lead to low stomach acid, which means that there's low protein absorption and low mineral absorption. And they also disrupt the fatty acid cascade. So when we're actually looking at the how the body produces inflammation, the way that it works, like omega-3s actually help us to fight off the inflammation, to get rid of the inflammatory chemicals, whereas the NSAIDs actually stop the conversion into the cytokines and leukotrienes that cause inflammation, but they also stop the conversion into the good fats. It stops that conversion of the short chain omega-3s into the long chain omega-3s. So you run the risk of cardiovascular disease even, and other kinds of diseases because of imbalances in fatty acids. Jem has, if somebody has orthorexia, would be a caution. I think orthorexia is a made up thing. And I just don't buy it that people are calling people who are concerned about what they eat, that they make sure that they eat only healthy food, a disease. It's not true. If there's an eating disorder, if it's an eating disorder, like somebody is afraid to eat because they're afraid they're going to get fat, going to get sick, etc., that's different. But what people are calling orthorexia, they would call me orthorexic because I'm concerned about every morsel I put in my body, and I'm not putting anything that's not good for me in my body. So anybody with an eating disorder does need to be cautious, where there's a psychological basis there. Donna says, how do you measure ketones? Yeah, you get a Keto Mojo machine or a Precision Extra. It's a little device that you do a skin prick and you put it in the device and you measure it. Jem says, is nutritional ketosis the same as seeing ketones in the urine on a dipstick? Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing with the dipstick is not as accurate. So you might be in ketosis. You can't tell how far into ketosis it is. So nutritional ketosis is more like, the ketones are registering on a blood ketone level of about 0.5 to 1.5. Anything above 1.5 would be more of a therapeutic type of a ketosis, 1.5 to 3. And then above that is usually only achieved during fasting. How are we checking our own glucose and ketones? Is it a test or device? Does it have to be lab work? Yeah, great question, Karen. I showed a picture of it. Maybe I glossed over it too quickly, but people need to learn to check your glucose at home yourself and check your ketones at home yourself. And there's a device called the Keto Mojo that does both. There's another one called the Precision Extra, which I don't like quite as much because the strips are much more expensive. And then there's individual. You can actually get an individual glucose meter that you can see. Whoops. box just popped up and covered up the questions. So a glucose meter at home. So the Keto Mojo is my favorite. It's about $50. You can get the strips for glucose or you can get the strips for ketones. Their glucose strips are a little higher priced than, say, something like the Rely On Prime at Walmart. When you're in my program, my Sweet Spot Solution program for clients and the insulin resistance training or the nutritional endocrinology training, we teach you exactly how to test that at home. And I have a chart that compares all those devices. Jem, so I just answered your question, Gemma. Hopefully that answered it. You asked again, how do I know that I'm in ketosis? I have my Keto Mojo device, and I do it that way. Gilbert wants to know examples of low glycemic fruit. Yeah, low glycemic fruits, it's going to depend on the person. And the way you know if it's low glycemic is if you test your blood sugar and it doesn't go up higher than, 25 points over what it started with, it's probably good for you as a low glycemic. But the ones that are considered low glycemic would be berries, green apples as opposed to red apples. Sometimes kiwis are considered there, but they're foods that don't raise your blood sugar. And I personally think that everybody gets to choose to figure out for themselves what's low glycemic for them and what isn't. Doreen, you said earlier that glucose levels less than about 70 can get dangerous. Isn't that a problem? No, wait. Less than 70 is dangerous if a person is on insulin, because if it starts to show as less than 70, it's going to start to keep going lower, and we want to bring it up. But no, as long as the ketones are coming up, my blood sugar is always, every day I get to 67 is my goal every day, to get below 70. And when I'm fasting, I can get as low as in the 40s or 30s even. So no, not below 70 is not dangerous. Below 70 is a warning sign that needs to be checked out in a person who's on insulin or blood sugar lowering medications. Well, mainly insulin, because it can lower it really fast. Linda says, how do you start a career in what you do? Yeah. So we have training programs that we can get you started. And if you want to reach out to one of our coaches and talk, go to neptapply.com. Fill out a questionnaire. We'll see if you're a good applicant for where we are. If not, then we can help you to get started with more basics. But our programs will prepare you for that. So if you're not ready for our practitioner training programs, we have some programs for consumers for you to work on your own health that go into a lot of depth. And if you study those programs, then you can come into our practitioner training program and be a health coach. Now, if you want to do what I do, which is more, I have a degree in chiropractic, I have a degree in acupuncture, I have a degree in herbal medicine, herbalism, and what's the other one? Heart math. So I've done a lot of postgraduate studies, right? So if you want to be licensed by a licensing board, you'd have to go back to a school, like a naturopathic school, chiropractic school, a medical school that does holistic medicine, etc. But what we've provided is training, and you can come to Shine and meet a lot of others who are there, and come to the Shine conference is a great way to do it, is come to Shine. And if that material, if what we're teaching there feels like too in-depth, like you need more basics, then talk to us and we'll show you how to get started within our programs to get you up to speed there. How much is the registration fee? I posted it. It's $497 if you do it by tomorrow night, and then it goes up to $597, and then it goes up again at the end of July and the end of August. So as it gets closer, it goes higher. Oh gosh, Linda, if you're a clinical scientist and you want to step into this field, join our NEPT program, Linda, because you've already got you've got enough basic science to get right in. NEPTapply.com will get you in. We have a lot of people in there who are pharmacists. We have people in there who have nutrition degrees. We have MDs, we have DCs, NDs, acupuncturists, herbalists, and we have scientists. We have people who have come through the realm of being, that the science is their thing. So if you're not afraid of science, just jump right in at neptapply.com. What are your thoughts about eating small amounts of good quality animal proteins? Yeah, a lot of people do really well on small amounts of high quality, not the stuff that you buy at the supermarket, not the stuff they serve at McDonald's, but organically raised, pastured, clean animals, not shot up with hormones and antibiotics. And it depends on the person, right? Some people really need to add that to their diet, and some people don't. I propose a plant-strong, plant-based diet, and small amounts of good quality animal products for most people are not going to be problematic. There may be some gene things that are going to show that it's not in your benefit, but I haven't had animal products in 30 something years, 33 years, and I thrive this way. Other people try and they need to have that small amount. Some people twice a week, they'll have, some lean organic meat or fish. Yeah. I'm not dogmatic in my approach. I want everybody to find what works for them. But what I do want is nobody should be eating that processed meat crap that most people eat. Nobody should be eating it. And if you're going to be going out to a restaurant and it's not a restaurant that says they have organic meat, be a vegetarian at the restaurant, a vegan at the restaurant. Do not eat the animal products. Just eat as much salad and vegetable as you can. Carol wants to know, if we want to do a longer fast, do we need to see a doctor? Thank you for doing this. I would experiment with the shorter fast, but if you want to do a longer, prolonged fast to help you heal a specific thing, I would look at some of the places that do it with you. So there's True North in California. There's Tree of Life in Arizona. Hippocrates, I don't know if they do fasting, but they're in where are they? They're in Florida. But there's locations, there's people that guide you. There's one in Texas, not too far from here, but people who have experience and know what to be looking for is important. Carol says, can we do other fats instead of coconut oil? On my list, I had shown all these fats. My preferred fats are whole food, plant-based fats. Coconut, not coconut oil, coconut, those vegan butter cheeses kind of things, the good ones. And Yoko has good ones. Kite Hill has good ones. Tree Line has good ones. So any of those plant-based fermented cheeses are great. Your soaked cashews and almonds and all those, just being careful about omega-3, 6. We'll go into more of the details at Shine and in our programs about really specifics about how to set up the diets. But yeah, I'm not a fan of coconut oil. I had specifically said with the coconut or MCT oil in folks who tend to they're small, they have high metabolic rates, and they can't take in a lot of food because their stomach gets full, then I'll have them do some coconut oil or MCT oil. Not a lot, but I'm not a big fan of oil at all. It's a fractured food. Leah says, do I have a 5-day recipe guide using whole foods rather than the package option? Glad you asked. I am going to be doing after Shine. I was going to try to do it before Shine, but I just don't have the cycles. And we're going to do a 5-day challenge where I will create the 5 days of menus for that. But use the guidelines that I taught you there and play with it, and you can get those results. Karen, do we have to have a Keto Mojo to do the fasting, or can we monitor ourselves? A Keto Mojo lets you monitor yourself. So if you are doing fasting, I highly recommend that you are testing, because you don't want to get into trouble. So you just buy a Keto Mojo, $50, and you can test as many times as you want. You just buy replacement strips. Another Karen, what are the benefits to the liver from intermittent fasting? Well, the liver gets a break, number one, from the food intake and the toxins in the food. And so it gets a break, and it gets to mobilize the stored toxins, and it actually upregulates the liver pathways. So it's really good. My 28-day fast was amazing. For people who are underweight, how do they go about fasting? Yeah. So if you're a little underweight and you're very healthy underweight, like you're eating really well and you've got good nutrient intake, then you can fast for short periods of time, and then make sure that you're really careful about your refeeding, that you replenish your calories. For people who are of their normal weight, yeah, you're going to drop weight. Don't be scared of it. But if you're significantly underweight, like say you're 5'4" and you weigh 95 pounds, I would say you're going to need to go through a period of refeeding, healthy feeding. Do intermittent fasting in that you have the 12 hours from dinner to breakfast, and then, space your meals out, 3 meals a day, but have good hearty meals and get your weight up to where it should be. Put on some muscle, because that's going to help. And it depends, really a lot of people are underweight, but they're over fat. So I would get a body comp, a bioimpedance type of a composition to see where you're at, and how the best way to put the weight on is. If you've got a significant amount of fat, but not a lot of lean, then it would mean doing some weight training to try to build that up. But yeah, so with fasting for people who are significantly underweight, it's small bursts, kind of like what I showed for women, like just little experimentations with it and making sure that you're eating well in between. Anna says, can fasting induce night sweat bouts in premenopausal women? That I will say this is an interesting question, because in the past, when I would do like 3 to 5 day fasts, on day 3, every single time I would wake up in night sweat. I would wake up completely sweaty. And I perceived that as that's my body going into major detox and getting rid of it. It only lasted for a few hours on that 3rd day, but it can. And you can actually just sort of break the fast a little bit by just having something small, having, what would I do? I think I had a little bit of grapefruit to just get my sugar up and get the fasting slowed down. So you slow down the fasting. Otherwise, you can just live through it, but it shouldn't induce more night sweats overall. It should actually be helping with that. Heidi, how do you advise someone on blood pressure medications to proceed with caution in intermittent fasting? I think if you're just doing 12 to 16 hour intermittent fast, it's just monitor. That's all I would say. If your blood pressure starts to dip too low, then you talk to your doctor about lowering the dose, or you skip a dose and then call your doctor. So that's all that really needs to be taken in. Longer fasts, then you have to be with the doctor, making sure that you know that as the blood pressure goes down, that the medication doses. That's really the caution with the blood pressure, is that the blood pressure will go too low and the medication will force it even lower, and maybe you'll pass out, get dizzy. So work with your doctor on that. I fast for 12 hours a day and I'm underweight. I believe you mentioned that people shouldn't fast daily due to 12 hours is not considered fasting daily. That to me is considered normal. So I think everybody should be fasting 12 hours a day. Finish your dinner at 7 o'clock and don't eat again until 7 o'clock. That's all that is, right? I believe you mentioned that people shouldn't fast daily due to being underweight. I've been advised not to do intermittent fasting. I feel good fasting daily. Keep doing your 12 hours. Just make sure that you're eating what you need. And I would go to something like Chronometer or fitday.com or MyFitnessPal and look at what they offer you in terms of monitoring your intake, and then say, okay, where can I increase my calories? Where can I get what I need? How am I doing with my macro and micronutrients? Claudia, not sure if I can attend the Shine conference because of timing. How long can I cancel once I sign up? Thank you. I would say, here's the thing. You have up to 30 days before. However, here's the thing. We're going to give you those bonuses. Those bonuses are worth 3 times what the conference is worth. So even if you don't, if you can't make it, you get to keep the bonuses. And if you can't make it and you've paid, you let us know and we will send you, the goodie bag of the stuff that we give out. So you'll get your goodie bag. You won't get the meals, obviously, but you'll get a whole lot more. So I'd recommend that you just sign up. And if you can't make it, let us know and we'll make arrangements with you. Jack says, I take phenofibrate to lower LDL. Am I a good candidate? Yeah, I mean, you probably are. I mean, talk with your doctor. I talk to you. I don't know your health history. So talk to your doctor about, say, I'm doing this and I want you to monitor me more regularly. And if my numbers start to go down with something like that, it's not like blood pressure where you pass out while you're driving. If it goes too low, your LDLs are not going to go too low. So I don't think, and I would talk to your doctor, but I don't see that be a major problem. Gail says, if you're 30 pounds overweight, what do you recommend in fasting? You're going to have to find your fasting regime, right? So what I would do is to start with at least the 12 hour, if you're not doing that, because everybody should, and then go to 16-hour fasts, and then try to do a 24-hour fast and just play with it. When I did the 28-day guy, he basically did 1 day of fasting. He tried it. He went, oh, that was cool. Then he went back to eating. And then he did 2 days of fasting and 2 days of eating. Then he did 3 days of fasting and 3 days of eating. Then he did 4 days of fasting, and he got himself ready for it. He got himself built up, and you get to see what happens to you. Do you have to do more of the intermittent fasting and not a longer fast? But I wouldn't recommend longer fasts unless you're under supervision. So I would be doing these bouts of it. Yeah. Nuts give me headaches. Does soaking them make a difference? It could, Sharon. I mean, it depends on why the nuts give you headaches. It could be if the fat isn't being digested. It could be the kind of nuts you're getting. Are they organic? But soaking them and sprouting them can make a difference. And the only way I could say is to try. Please talk more about what specific kinds of fasting and duration generates the most stem cells. So the deeper you are into autophagy, the more you're going to have of the stem cells. So when you do that measure of your ketones and your glucose and you get to 1 or below, that's when you're in the major state of autophagy and when you're going to generate most stem cells. And that's going to vary from person to person. It's going to take some time of experimentation with it. So you've got to experiment with the different kinds of fasting and go from there. Okay, so I'm going to look. I don't see any more questions typed into my document. I'm going to check here to see. And I recommend you can just come because all these questions that I've answered, we're going to go in way more depth. And you'll have other speakers also to be able to talk to and ask questions of. And with 3 days of instruction, you'll be able to understand what's the best for you, what's the best for your clients, what's the best that you can recommend your family member. But I would always say it's going to be dip your toes in slowly if you've never done it before. Get yourself used to it. Do the 12 hours, then try to go to 13 and 14 and get some intermittent fasting going. If you can go to 24, great, go to 24. If not, do the fasting mimicking, whether it be the kit, which I don't like, but some people do, or doing it on your own, following the guidelines that I gave. For those of you who sign up for Shine, we will post a permanent copy of the recording. We'll post that in the bonuses area on the site. When you get in there, we'll also give you copies of the slides. So you'll have copies of these slides, but you'll get way more. For those of you who came in late, we hope to have a replay up so you can watch again. For those of you who didn't take notes on the slides as I was going through them, we will give you a replay and you can go back through and listen. But the main point is I really highly recommend that you join us for 3 days of amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing stuff. So I can't wait to meet you guys. I can't wait to be with you guys. I know that several of us have met already, and it's exciting to come together again. The first night of Shine, Thursday night before we start, we have a little reception. So all of you guys can come to the reception and, meet and greet basically. And we have a nice, healthy, low glycemic snack, although it's probably not a good idea for intermittent fasting, but that's the way it goes. I am excited to have you guys joining me. For those of you who have joined, congratulations. I'm excited. And for those of you who haven't yet made up your mind, it's just the most amazing conference that you can come to. I wish there were more of these like that. And it looks like, let's see if anybody just did sign up. And remember, the price goes up by $100 after tomorrow. And all those bonuses I just mentioned, they go away. Yeah, we'll add some extra bonuses at some point. But at this point, it's really, it's just something that you need to make a decision on. Like decide that you want it, you need it for yourself. It looks like we had a few of you joined in. We have Diane and Penny. Congratulations and welcome. And somebody joined yesterday. No, that was on the 10th. Yeah. So congratulations and welcome. And we look forward to more of you joining in. So thank you. Let me go back here. I've been looking at the thing. I haven't looked here. Thanks again. I got to go. Yay. Leah says, my information has been amazing as ever. I hope you can come, Leah. I know it's over the ocean, but I hope you can. So Heidi says, if you're on blood pressure meds and you feel fine with more than 16 hours, then just try extending it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Monitor your blood pressure. Don't forget to monitor your blood pressure. And if it starts to go down too much, doctor, I need to lower my blood pressure medication dose. And it's best if you are going to do that you check in advance and you ask what the best way they recommend that you decrease it. Let's see. Here's the evening. Yeah, thank you, guys. A fasting expert in the 80s said that diluted juice fasting was more protective than just water fasting. That's one of the things that you can do as a fasting mimicking day. You don't have to get as in depth, but it's like the fasting mimicking. And I should have talked about that. We'll talk more about that at Shine, and we'll go into the juicing, because not fruit juice, it would be vegetable juice. You have to be careful because some people with vegetable juice, even their glucose goes up, which means that their ketones don't increase and you don't get into as protective effect, but you can do that and you're still getting your micronutrients. And, alternating fasting, water fasting with juice fasting can be helpful as well. So that's a good point, Karen. Wow, there's a bunch more questions in here that I didn't see in my chart. Let's see. Maybe there's more that you guys added. Yeah, I guess you added them and I was there. Do people get into ketosis overnight, 12-hour fast? Generally not. No. It's just not long enough. And it depends on the person, but most people won't. For most people, it takes about 2 to 3 days to kick in. Irma says, can prolonged fasting revise or reduce metaplasia of the stomach? Prolonged fasting can do lots of things, and I can't say everything for sure. If you want to read more in depth on fasting and the miracles, you can go to the old book is Fasting Can Save Your Life, but Joel Fuhrman wrote a book on fasting a few years back, and then Jason Fung wrote a book on fasting, and there's a lot of in-depth. And come to Shine and learn the ins and outs and the science of it and all the different things that it can work with. Okay, I answered those 3. Yeah, I answered all those questions. All right. So guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. There are lots of you here. There's still lots of you here. I hope this was helpful. Please type into the chat and let us know if you enjoyed it, if it was helpful, and go to shinelifeconference.com and join us for this amazing 3-day event where we're going to go do a deep dive on this. And stay tuned. We'll be doing, more trainings as time goes on. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.